Saint Mangat Ram Ji's discourses or satsangs. Introduction. Satsang means association with a seer of truth. God is truth. So satsang means association with a seer of God. Saint Mangat Ram Ji was a seer of God. The commentator requests forgiveness for the mistakes he makes. Date of the discourse, January 17, 1951. The place, Taran, the seat of a famous Sikh shrine. From the moment he is born to the moment he dies, being lives as a creature of worry and activity. Comment 1. We live in constant worry and activity. No moment can he find that is not a moment of occupation and assiduousness. His days are active, and so are his nights. Comment 2. We are very busy these days. We do not have time to listen to anyone. There is television, phone, internet, text messages, and emails. We have to take care of our numerous possessions. So Maharaji says in his discourse, the wheel of action moves on to engage without a respite every embodied being the very end of his pilgrimage. Comment 3. Life is a pilgrimage. A man has to come to this world to get close to God. So Maharaji continues with his discourse. Consider for a moment the condition of being human. Every man is immersed in the instrument of activity, this body. Not for a moment will he pause to think what this body is, this instrument of action is. Speaking, he will not consider who the speaker is. Seeing, he will not pause to think who the seer is, nor will he think who is the hearer and who is the thinker. Comment 4. We have so much information these days. We know something about everything, but we do not pause to think, who am I? So Maharaji continues with his discourse. This is how his life is spent away, in thoughts, activities. This is how his life is spent away, in thoughts, activity, without any inkling of where he came from and where he is going. Activity is innate in him. To eat and to drink comes to him as an inheritance, and so do other activities like seeing and hearing, but not the power to distinguish between the good action and the evil action. All ignorant of this is he born. Blessed is this human birth, for in this birth being can attain to the Supreme Being that ever is itself, that immortal soul supreme. Comment 5. Human birth is blessed because a human being can know God. He can attain God. The life of Saint Mangat Ram Ji, Rama, Krishna, Buddha and other prophets is a testimony of this fact. Maharaji says in his discourse, but man lives as given up to the body, given up to it so blindly as to lose the sight of what truly is his and not his. Greed prompts him to evil, and so does infatuation. Every place has something to please him and distress him, and so has every time and everybody. At his birth itself, he inherits ups and downs, those results of some actions he did in the past, actions that have begun to bear their fruit. Comment 6. In India, it's believed that ups and downs are inherited due to actions in past lives. We go through cycle of recurrent births and recurrent deaths. So Maharaji or Saint Mangat Ram Ji says, his birth itself is a result of a part of the countless deeds he did in the past, an inevitable result. The inevitable will happen, is bound to happen, despite the self-forgetful busybody that his greed and attachment have made of him. Comment 7. This is called prarabdha. The inevitable will happen. His portion of pleasure and pain is inevitable. He will gain certain things and lose certain things depending on his actions in his past life. So Maharaji says the Lord has vouchsafed to man the power of thinking to discriminate the truth from the untruth, the good from the evil, and not for acquisition of the pleasures of the world, which his past deeds alone will ordain for him. Understanding not the inevitability of his portion of pleasure and pain, man wastes away his power of thinking on these his so-called goals and ends. That is his ignorance, the densest one. Half of his life is spent in sleep, the other half in fret and anxiety. Before long visit him age and its helplessness, and days and nights of worries and insecurity. From woe to woe he goes, no rest remains for him, no freedom from vexatious worries. The memory of the happiness that is no more distresses him. The future holds no promise for him, for death confronts him there. Whatever he earned, his children waste away without a thought and consideration of his sweat and struggle. Himself he lived a miser, spent little on himself or on others, nothing on piety or in the services of unhappy and distressed. The prodigality and extravagance of his children upset him a great deal, but in vain are his protests and reprimands. In infatuation for them, he earned and hoarded, spent not a tithe of his acquisitions in good deeds. His entire life was spent in expanding his family and bringing it up, thinking not for a moment that what he thought were his riches were his penury. The wealth he accumulated through lies and frauds will be of no avail to him, for everything will be left back here itself. Nothing will accompany him. A man inflicted with stupidity can never understand that the true wealth consists in good deeds, in those alone. Comment 8. True wealth consists in good deeds, in these alone. They alone will determine his lot in lives to come. So Maharaji says, they will determine his lots in lives to come. But if he sows the bitter shall he reap. Comment 9. A man sows bitter and he reaps bitter. He spends all his life in acquiring worldly wealth. He does not do a single good deed. There is a belief popular in India, especially among the Hindus, that one's descendants will take care of one's redemption. When they, in this life, make an old man live at the outer fringes of their house, turn a deaf ear to his call, or if they respond, they do so heaping insults on him, call him senile and a glutton, how will they, under what compulsion, bother about what fate he meets after his death? Comment 10. These days, the children would not even make him live at the outer fringes of their houses, attics, or basements. They would send him to a nursing home. Maharaji says, for whose comfort he dedicated his entire life, they find his subsistence a burden and a strain. Unstable is this world. Unstable are all relationships here, all anchors. When he dies, his family takes care to observe every custom, will make his funeral procession a grand affair, a thing of show to win the applause of the people. In his death, the same man that was a burden for them becomes an object of celebration, a means to win respectability. This is what they call relationship, this empty show. Comment 11. Truth is bitter. This is harsh reality. So Maharaji says, what good he did in life, that alone will be his anchor, his meditation, his tapa, the service he rendered to others, the generosity of his soul, his care and concern for those in distress, these alone will accompany him, neither his family nor his riches. Aware of the fact that their life is a short-lived affair, some people spend it in doing some good to others. In that alone they find their own good, in doing good to others. Such people alone are awake, for they think right and do the right. The world, however, teems with people who, all unaware of their goal, live with no thought of the direction of their life and its purpose. Comment 12. The world is full of people who are unaware of their goal. There is no purpose in their life. So Maharaji says, they live as their desires prompt them to live. There are others who think right but act wrong, under the compulsion of their greed and blind infatuation. He alone is free who think right and acts right, takes more care for the right action than for the right thought. He alone is wise. So long as a man does not come to be convinced of the reality of eternal being, he cannot take steps in the direction of his true well-being. May he, that is gracious to the lowly, bless all beings with a thinking stain-free. May he shower his blessing upon creatures so that they may know what is right and what is wrong. The days spent in pleasures were the days spent in vain. Of time they become the food. As for the future, it is all uncertain. So remember the Lord and make your life a success. That is the highest gift of human birth, remembrance of the Lord. Comment 13. Remembrance of God is the highest gift of human birth. We can make our life a success by remembering God. Second discourse. This discourse was given in 1943 at a mosque in northwest frontier province of British India. This is only a summary of the discourse which he gave to the fierce Pathans that are supposed to be fanatics. How is it that they listen to his reprimands meekly and intently? Maharaji says, Embodied in clay souls, embodied in clay, souls come and go, have been coming and going ever since he that created himself willed that there be a word and the order of the word. Comment 1. We are souls embodied in clay. All our life we identify ourselves with this body made of clay. We do not identify with our soul. So Maharaji says, as long as bodies are there are words too, of each being a word of his own. Comment 2. Each person lives in a word of his own. Some are under the spell of money, some are under spell of power or name or fame. Most persons do not pay any attention to what the sages, prophets and saints say. So Maharaji says, a creature of misery is every being, amazed and confused, every being, be he a human or a beast. Comment 3. Every being is a creature of misery. He is amazed and confused. And Maharaji says, those who could cure this malady of misery too have been coming into the world, in every part of it, in the west no less than in the east. Comment 4. Saint Mangat Ram Ji can cure our malady. He is the master physician. We are all sick. So Maharaji says, and continue to come will they, creatures that followed in their footsteps, thousands of them, found deliverance everlasting and bliss immortal, their minds coming to rest forever. Comment 5. If we follow footsteps of Saint Mangat Ram Ji, we can find everlasting deliverance and immortal bliss. So Maharaji says, but the souls that come to deliver the command of the Lord, the command out of the ordinary, had to undergo many a hardship and affliction. Comment 6. Saint Mangat Ram Ji went through much hardship. He survived only on 1 cup of tea daily. He meditated all night. He did not sleep for years. He lived under open sky. Some fanatics tried to kill him one time. He went through much physical suffering. So Maharaji says, but their truth perfect made the malevolent meek and the hostile self-submissive. No sacred writ will ever permit you to harm any creature for the sake of your own desire. For teach they, without exception, service unto them, to each and every being, man or beast. The self-created one, the Lord Supreme, is not the property of any being, for with his light of being the Supreme is illumined all that is. And the man that denies that being supreme is a kafir, an infidel. Comment 7. Muslims call other non-Muslims as kafir or infidel. But Saint Mangat Ram Ji says that the person who does not see God in others, he is kafir, he is kafir or infidel. A faithful seeker will comprehend the light that is the Lord. A faithful seeker will comprehend the light that the Lord is if he sees no other, finds no second. He alone is a true follower of his guide and prophet, who perceives the presence of the Lord in every being, in the birds of the air, in the beasts of the pastures, and the forests no less than in man. A man of this metal will have nothing but love and affection for every being. Comment 8. A true devotee of God is not fanatic. He does not hate persons belonging to other religions. If he sees God in each and every being, how can he kill animals? How can he hate other belonging to different religion? So Maharaji says, and he lives as the Lord wills him to live, for his desire is nothing else than the Lord's will. Comment 9. A true devotee of God follows the will of God. His desire is nothing else than God's will. Maharaji or Saint Mangat Ram Ji says, in his eyes all belong to the Lord, to him alone. His belongings and his possessions, his mind and his body. When all is his and his alone, where is the room for self-glory? That alone is infidelity, this sense of mine. Comment 10. Sense of mine alone is infidelity. So Maharaji or Saint Mangat Ram Ji says, do you have anything of your own that you could offer to the Lord? Consider it well. For the sake of satisfying your desire, you get cruel where you are to be compassionate. You kill creatures of the Lord and call them sanctified and eat them. The creatures killed by the Lord forbidden, and the creatures killed by the man sanctified, this sanctified and other not. What a wisdom, what a vision! A fabrication is all this, fabrication woven by your own desire and craving. Comment 11. We do not know true religion. We do not even care to know it. Our so-called religion is only a fabrication woven by our own desires, greed and craving. It is rationalization of our own desires, comforts and material needs. We do not care to know the truth. We lie to ourselves and then believe in those lies. We only deceive ourselves. So Maharaji says, and reap you shall the rewards, the wages of your sins. If you would glory the Lord, then glory the death of desire and selfhood. Comment 12. How many of us glory the death of desire and selfhood? No wonder that we fail to please God and leave this world in misery. So Maharaji says, for that alone will propitiate the Lord. For that alone will propitiate the Lord. Those who ever live as the Lord ordains them to live will wake up from their benightedness, and those who live entrenched in their selfhood will never find their mind come to have the rest it seeks. With faith, let him bless you with patience and humility. Comment 13. We live entrenched in our selfhood. We do not find any peace in this world. This concludes the second discourse. Third discourse. This was a discourse in Mator, page 161, A Master and a Seeker, December 1939. Desire burns every being without a let-up. Of desire is the reservoir, this perishing body composed of the 5 elements. Greater the desire, deeper will be the misery. Smaller the desire, smaller will be the misery. Comment 1. Greater is the desire, deeper will be the misery. Greater desire is perhaps the reason for depression in this time. So Maharaji says, every spiritual effort, every such endeavor has only this end in view, to find liberation from desire. Comment 2. Every spiritual effort is to find liberation from desire. So Maharaji says, through earnest and sustained endeavor, one does come to put a restraint on it. Spiritual endeavor or effort means meditation on the name vouchsafed by the man true, by one who has become one with the truth itself. Comment 3. Maharaji or Saint Mangat Ram Ji had become one with the truth. He had become one with God. So Maharaji continues his discourse that name should become the sole refuge and resort of the man on the path. Only that can take you beyond the pale of desire. This meditation of and refuge in the name. Frail and uncertain is the term of one's life. One cannot know when the breath of life may desert one. So, give yourself up with devotion to meditation of the Lord. Take refuge in Him. Live as He wills you to live. A blessing and priceless is human birth. Comment 4. Human birth is priceless. A man can reach closer to God or can even become one with God. So Maharaji or Saint Mangat Ram Ji says, waste will it go if you live bereft of the meditation and vision of the Lord. For burn you will in desire, life after life without a count, without an end. Comment 5. A man burns in desire, life after life without a count, without an end. So Maharaji says, they attain to the happiness true, those that the Lord has loved, attain to the happiness that ever appeases and fulfills. And they, when called upon to redeem the people of the world, spent all their lives for that purpose. Full is his life, perfect is it, the life of him who has stilled his desire. Comment 6. A man who has stilled his desire, his life is full, it is perfect. He is appeased fully. So Maharaji says, they alone are the guides. They alone are qualified to be so. Those who have killed desire to find the Lord within them and everywhere. Next paragraph says, men and women of the world live divided into many sects and many faiths. But those that the Lord loves have only one way to follow, the way that leads to the extinction of desire. That is the message and command they bring from Him to the world. The message and the command that man put an end to desire. They alone know the truth, not those who live as slaves of desire. Fortunate are you, all that you are participating in the satsanga. In this association with the truth, make your life pure. That will be your grace unto this. Be the true guardians of your ideals. From sins will you be protected, from cunning and from conduct evil if you share in the satsanga. Study your scripture with care and with a pure mind. Pay heed to their words and learn to live as you are directed therein to live. That will be the way to know the way, know the faith true and conduct true. This concludes Discourse 3. Discourse 4. Another discourse in Meteor, page 163, A Master and a Seeker, year 1939. Maharaji says, a functioning complex is this body, mind, intellect complex. Ever and always does it function, ever and always is it active. In his ignorance, this jiva, this living being, confuses these functions as his functions, imagines himself as their doer. Comment 1b. This body-mind-intellect complex is a functioning complex. In his ignorance, a jiva or this living being confuses these functions as his functions. He imagines himself to be a doer. So Maharaji says, this confusion, his self-identification with those functions is the cause of rebirth, an endless process of this ever-recurring malady. When this body came into being, its size was small, and so was its understanding. It could not distinguish between the right and the wrong. With its growing grew the disease of desire, a disease that proved terminal. Youth came to fulfill desires of the mind. Every effort was made for that end, but all went futile and useless. Whatever thoughts arose in the mind became the motivating force behind all actions and struggles. There were moments of happiness and unhappiness, of gain and loss, of health and disease. At their mercy he lived, helpless and miserable. Next paragraph. Remember, this ever-perishing body is a disease unfathomable and deep. Comment 1c. This ever-perishing body is a disease. So Maharaji says, strive, therefore, to free yourself from this great disease. Where are those that brought you into the world? Where have they disappeared? As birds fly away from the trees, their habitats, so flew away those from this world, their garden. So endeavor well to liberate yourself from this net of illusions and try to find the truth, to find that which is ever itself. Find out which makes this body live and move. Find out that force, that power. Reap out something for yourself from this body which never stays as itself and will one day disappear into nothing. Next paragraph. To free you from this disease, there is the way of meditation on the name. That makes the mind still, makes it find appeasement eternal and endless. For no attraction will remain for the man stilled and appeased thus. No charm in what the 9 apertures in the body could offer him. Comment 1a. If a man meditates on the name of God, his mind will be stilled. He will find eternal and endless appeasement. He will find no charm in what the 9 apertures of the body could offer him. So Maharaji says, meditation on the name makes one stable and go beyond the 3 modes of being, that of tamas, dull inertia, that of motion and activity, and that of transcendence. Comment 1. Tamas is a dull inertia. It leads to deception, harming others, violence, and cheating. Rajas leads to motion and activity, acquiring wealth, and sattva leads to transcendence. So Maharaji says, it is only then that this being comes to rest, having gone beyond the range of these three modes. Only a human being can find the way to that state where there is no tamas, inertia, no activity, rajas, and no transcendence, sattva. Comment 2. Only a human being can reach a state where there is no tamas or inertia, no rajas or activity, and no sattva or transcendence. So Maharaji says, gentle souls devoted to the Lord, what will you get out of this body and the pleasure that it can offer? This body that will not stay for long. Please have faith in what the great ones have revealed unto you. Devote yourself to meditation on the name. Spare no effort to succeed in it. Let that be focus of your life. An ocean of misery verily is this word. Comment 3. The word is an ocean of misery. So Maharaji says, from death to death you will have to go, finding no end to this process. Comment 4. From death to death we will go, finding no end to this process. But we can turn this misery into true joy if we follow the teaching of Saint Mangat Ram Ji. So Maharaji says, be kind enough to turn this misery, this life, into true joy and be the guardians of the generations to come. So that concludes the fourth discourse.